This is the Zeiss 55mm 1.8, and this is the Helios 422 f2 lens. And I want to tell you why this $50 lens is kind of my favorite thing right now over this $900 Zeiss lens. Let's do this. What's up YouTube? My name is John Jags, and like I said, we were talking about these two very similar lenses. One is all manual, the Helios, and one is fancy and has all the electronic bells and whistles. So let's first talk about the Helios lens. It is a $50 lens that you can find on Amazon. There are multiple mounts for it. I am using the Sony version where you need this little adapter on the back of it, and you can just screw that on and off like so. And then you got the focus ring on it. Screw it back in. Focus ring, and then you have your aperture ring so you can control the aperture. Now I will say mine is a little worn out, so I actually don't know where the f-stop is. There's no like arrow indicating it, so I kind of have to guess and check. And the way I do that is I just set my ISO to the lowest number possible and then just turn the aperture dial until I'm letting in as much light as possible, and then adjust my ISO from there. So that's a little bit of a downside, but it is a vintage lens, so I understand that there is some wear and tear. Now when it comes to the Zeiss lens, you have all the fancy electronic bells and whistles. You have autofocus, and the camera will tell you what f-stop you're at, either 1.8 or f22 or whatever you're shooting at. So let's take a look at some images and video of these two lenses, and let's see if they match up, if they're even comparable. Okay, so in an effort to make the comparison of these two lenses as fair as possible, let's first talk about the differences in specs. So the Zeiss lens is a 55mm and the Helios is a 58mm, so you have a difference of about 3mm. The aperture is an f1.8 on the Zeiss lens and is an f2 on the Helios lens, so a difference in 0.2 of aperture. Now, you don't have any autofocus or electronic parts on the Helios, and you have all the fancy bells and whistles on the Zeiss. So obviously, compare and contrast, and then the biggest difference is $50 Helios, $900 Zeiss. So let's see now if those specs warrant the difference in price. The first thing I want to look at is sharpness, and what we're going to look at is a handful of photos we took with my friend Yvonne standing in front of the camera using a little, I guess, studio setting. We just did it in my living room using the Godox 8600 strobe as my key and the Godox 8200 as my background light. So these two lenses, my goal was not to look at the bokeh because I know that these lenses are known for their bokeh, but I wanted to see what the sharpness was like. So the way I did that is I just opened up to f10 on my Zeiss lens, and then I kept my ISO and my flash settings all the same, and then guessed and checked with the Helios to try and get as close to that f10 as possible so I could see the sharpness in those lenses. Now, I will be fully transparent with our data point here. The pose is not identical, but I think it is fair to say that the sharpness in the eye on both of these images here is pretty close. And what excites me about that is the Helios lens is $50 and the Zeiss lens is $900. So from a sharpness standpoint, it's pretty close. And on top of that, when you think about where most content is being posted today, like Instagram or online, where people are not blowing it up in that high quality, does that warrant a $900 lens or a $50 lens? We'll talk about the scenarios in which you might use each, but from a sharpness standpoint, I feel pretty good that both of these lenses are comparable. Now, from a bokeh standpoint, that is the biggest difference that most people tout about the Helios lens. You get this cool swirly pattern on the bokeh. So it has this interesting, unique vintage look, and I think it looks pretty cool. And this is one of the reasons why I'm using this lens a little bit more, because it has that unique look that not a lot of people have, because most people jump to whatever's modern and whatever will give them the easiest workflow. But we'll talk about workflow in just a second. I think that look will help people stand out. So the Helios does have a little bit of an advantage of having a unique look, but the Zeiss still has amazing looking bokeh, and I think both of these lenses live in their own world as far as the quality of bokeh. And obviously f2, f1.8, very, very close, so the difference is pretty marginal. I think the bokeh looks great on these lenses, but I'd love to hear what you think. Let me know in the comment section down below if you like the bokeh of the Zeiss, or if you like the bokeh of the Helios lens. All right, now let's talk about the user experience. Now, the user experience is going to be very different on both of these lenses, and here's why. Electronic, autofocus. You can shoot much, much, much faster. And then, not electronic. You kind of have to be very meticulous about your autofocus. So what does that mean as far as the user experience? You can kind of just freeform with this and just like go into aperture priority mode and just shoot and let Sony autofocus do its job, because it is just very reliable and I can just trust it. Versus this lens, you have to be cautious. You can just shoot and shoot and shoot, but if you're missing focus, which is very easy on a manual lens, you're not gonna get images that you're gonna use at all. So as far as a user experience goes, I will definitely say that using the Zeiss lens with the electronic features of it will make this lens superior than the Helios, but then you also have to consider the price and what are you shooting. So let's talk about first the costs and benefits of each lens. All right, so first things first, let's talk about the benefits of the Helios lens. It is gonna give you some really interesting bokeh, and I see that as a benefit. It'll be a unique look that might set your photos apart from everyone else. Now, another big benefit of it is $50. I think I paid like 50 and change for this. So yeah, I could use that money, the extra $850 to, I don't know, buy a gimbal or a new microphone or a tripod or anything like that. Think opportunity cost. Buying this versus that, what are you using it for? We'll talk about that in just a second. But the costs of this lens, there are some pretty significant ones. If you are shooting something fast action, I would not recommend using this, because I can guarantee you will miss shots. When I was doing these photo shoots with my friends Amanda and doing some cool model shoots with her, we switched between the 55 and the 58mm lens, and I know that I had a bunch of garbage photos that were just unpostable, missed focus, because I was trying to go too fast with it. And it was a fun experience using it in a fast action setting, but I would not recommend it for a professional client shoot. All right, so the Zeiss lens, the benefits, it's autofocus. Like, just that feature alone makes life so much easier. You can shoot in aperture priority mode and just let your camera go. And if you're doing video, just having that autofocus, if you need to capture something fast action, will be so helpful. So the cost of this lens is $900. You're getting this lens for $900, and it is easily one of my favorite lenses still, but it is a lot of money that's worth investing in. And most people say when you invest in your first lens, a lot of the time people say a 50, and I know why. You get some really good looking compression that's very flattering to the human face, but not wide that's going to create this crazy perspective. So in a sense, it's very natural to the human eye, and the 50mm is a great option. So cost, benefits, autofocus, electronic features, great. But now let's talk about where I would use each of these lenses and if it warrants that price. Recommendations. Okay, so my recommendation for the Helios lens that is all manual, when would you use this? Studio settings where you have lots of time. So say product, for example, where your camera is staying on a tripod and you can set that focus. You can really be meticulous about how you want things to look. So studio settings, this lens would be great. I love the look of it. It's super sharp and gets the job done. Another scenario I would consider using it is if you're just going out and just shooting some photos with your friends and they don't really care how long it takes. Like, obviously be respectful of their time and work fast, but be meticulous with this so that you can make sure you get good looking images. Interviews, for example, like if you're doing video interviews, kind of like this right now, you could use this lens and just maybe close it down just a little bit more just to make sure you're in focus, and having an external monitor or focus peaking on will help you make sure you nail that focus. So this lens is a great option if you want something cheap and you want that 50mm look. So these are the Helios 422 and the Zeiss 55mm f1.8. Great lenses, and I highly recommend them. So let's wrap this up. That scared me. That scared me a lot. So that's gonna wrap up today's video. I hope you enjoyed or learned something about these two lenses, and you get a better idea of where you can allocate your money to get the best bang for your buck. I would like to thank my two friends Yvonne for volunteering to do some photos with me. I think she looked great and did a great job, just kind of vibing while I was just like, I want to test this lens. And then my other friend Amanda, she killed it on this photo shoot that we did for her birthday. Happy birthday, Amanda. I think the photos that came out from her shoot looked great. Go give both of them a follow on the Instagram. And I would also like to thank my friend April Solomon, who allowed me to film some of her artwork using both of these lenses and give us more examples of the costs and benefits of these lenses. Thank you, friends. I appreciate it, and thank you very much for watching this video. If you learned something, you had fun, you were entertained, or anything of that sort, let me know. I am always available in the comments or on Instagram. Just DM, slide into those DMs. And until next time, my name is John Jags. I appreciate you. I hope whatever you're having for dinner is gonna be amazing, protein filled, and I don't know, go get a lift on or something. I'm gonna go do that. All right, bye. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you in that next one.